Greetings, this is Joe Alfie with Short Sale Negotiators. I'm here to talk to you today about how to handle the discussion with your sellers regarding deficiencies or potential deficiencies when we're dealing with short sales. Okay, first we need to talk about what is a deficiency. Here's an example. If you have somebody who owes $200,000 and through the short sale we are able to net the lender $150,000. There's a $50,000 deficiency. In other words, the bank is losing that $50,000. In some cases, the sellers may be liable for that debt, that deficiency debt, to the lender even after the property is sold. It's very important that you disclose this fact to the sellers. We don't want to put an agent into a situation that down the road the sellers say, "You never told me about this, I'm going to sue you," and now you're in trouble. So we have to make sure that we are open and honest and upfront about all of the ramifications and possibilities when we're talking about a short sale. Now, we understand what a deficiency is. Let's take a look at why there's deficiencies. We get two kinds of short sale approvals in a short sale. Number one, we get an approval that is what's called a full release. That means that not only are the lenders or investors releasing the liability and the claim against the mortgage or the title, but they're also releasing the debt against the mortgage. So in other words, they release the lien against title, they release the debt against the mortgage, the seller walks away owing no money to anybody. That's obviously what we try to accomplish on every one of these short sales, but sometimes, due to circumstances, it's not possible. When is it not possible? When we get the second kind of release. When we get the second kind of short sale approval, which is a lien release only. Means that the bank releases their claim against the title so you can convey clear title to a new buyer, but they do not release the liability for the mortgage. So in other words, whatever's left over, that deficiency, the seller still owes that money. Now, to understand why banks do this, you have to understand how banks work. Let's use the example of Bank of America. The seller gets a statement every month for Bank of America, but Bank of America most likely does not own that loan. They've sold that note to another entity. That entity is referred to as an investor. So it's not Bank of America's decision whether to release deficiency. It's the investors. And if it's in the investors' guidelines that they require deficiency, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no amount of negotiation or whining and crying to Bank of America that's going to make them release that debt. The only thing that you could possibly offer is a cash settlement for a portion of that deficiency. Sometimes that works. Some sellers, though, and some buyers, though, are not in a position to offer extra cash to settle a debt. So, what happens when we have this deficiency? Well, a couple of things. Remember, we have 50% of short sales, we get full release, no deficiency. 50% of short sales, there is a deficiency. Let's look at this percentage here. Of that 50% where there's a deficiency, 90% of sellers receive what's called a 1099-C, or forgiveness of debt, from the lender. This is a good thing, because according to the Mortgage Debt Relief Act of 2007, this 1099-C forgiveness of debt is not considered a taxable income event as long as it's a primary residence. Now, there are, of course, exceptions to this rule, and so the sellers need to hear from you that they need to speak with an attorney or a CPA to assess those liabilities. Always refer these questions to an attorney or CPA. This is a liability question. You don't want to be giving them legal advice. So, 1099-C, for the most part, that is a waiver of collection by the bank. What does that mean? If the bank gives you a 1099-C, the bank is saying that they're forgiving you of this debt. And by issuing that 1099-C, and the deficiency amount is what's on the 1099, the bank is going to write that amount off against their revenue. So in effect, the lender is using it as a tax write-off, that loss, which means that they can't collect on that loss because they're writing it off. They can't double dip. Now, there are certain cases where the banks are able to still pursue collection activities. So, how you need to present it is that Mr. or Mrs. Seller, most likely you're going to get what's called a 1099-C. You'll want to check with your attorney or CPA to make sure that that's not a taxable event, but as long as that it is your primary residence you're selling, it shouldn't be. And it's probably going to waive the collection rights of the bank. So that leaves 10% left. Out of that 10%, 5% of the time, the lenders or investors or MI companies require what's called a promissory note. Now, a promissory note is not always a bad thing. It can be used as a tool. So, let's go back to that example, the $50,000 deficiency. We can negotiate a promissory note for a fraction of that amount. So let's say we're able to successfully negotiate a promissory note in the amount of $10,000, usually at 0% interest, maybe for 10, 15, 20 years. Okay? This is a good thing sometimes, because if the seller is not delinquent or the seller wants to protect their credit or rebuild their credit, accepting a promissory note is a good way to do that, because as long as they make that payment, their credit is not going to be damaged like it is on a normal short sale. Also, the lenders, when they issue a promissory note, they are saying that that is all you owe. It's in writing. So you can have a $400,000 mortgage, and after the short sale and promissory note, you walk away owing only $10,000. That's a pretty big reduction of exposure to debt. So if the seller has the means and ability to pay a promissory note and they want to protect or rebuild their credit, this could be a very good thing. If the sellers truly are in a hardship and they cannot afford to pay a promissory note, you've got to, again, refer it to their attorney. What I guarantee you what the attorney is going to say is, sign the promissory note and then include it in a bankruptcy at a later date. Now, remember, in a short sale, it's better than giving the property back or having a foreclosure, because what people don't realize is that if they lose the property through a deed in lieu of foreclosure, they still owe the money. They still owe that $400,000 mortgage plus legal fees plus interest. So what would you rather have? What would you rather show to a bankruptcy judge? $400,000 mortgage, $10,000 promissory note. I guarantee you the judge is going to look more favorably upon that small amount in the promissory note, and then the seller can say, hey, look, Your Honor, I did the right thing. I tried to reduce the losses to the bank. I sold the property via a short sale. This is all that's left is this $10,000. The lender or the bankruptcy judge or the trustee is going to look favorably upon that. So, in closing, always disclose to your sellers in the beginning that there is a possibility that a deficiency might be owed. You have to go through the process of explaining what the deficiency is, and you need to do it up front. Number one, that makes you look like a professional, and it makes you look like you are an ethical and empathic professional. You want to sympathize with their situation and offer them the best advice possible. And always don't forget to refer any legal questions to an attorney or a CPA and let them handle those tough questions such as tax liability and the whatnot. So, if you have any questions regarding how to present deficiency or any questions that a seller might have, feel free to email me at joe@ssnegotiators.com. And don't forget to visit the website at www.ssnegotiators.com. There's a wealth of information on the site showing how attorneys, real estate brokers, and homeowners can work with SSN to be successful at closing their short sales. Thank you.